Hi, welcome to the Red Booth Show. Tonight's episode features Naz Barouti. She is a radio host as well as a lawyer, and she discusses some very important topics. So come and join us.
It's time for Protecting Your Family with your host, attorney and insurance expert Naz Barouti. Naz Barouti is managing attorney at the Barouti Law Firm and has worked very hard to help families create, protect, and transfer their wealth. Naz brings an intelligent and strategic look at planning ahead for the day when you're not around to take care of your family. Take the first step this evening and find out what you can do to prepare for the future. The time is now, so let's get you started today.
Hi, Naz.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know that you have a radio show.
I do. Yeah, it's on KBC Talk Radio 790 every Saturday from 6 to 7 p.m.
Okay.
And my co-host is Kerri Kasem. Many of you know her.
Yeah.
She's Casey Kasem's daughter, and I love having her on the show with me.
That's so cool. So I know that it's a very specific sort of like subject that you guys get into, which is actually kind of a big deal, I think.
Yes, it's called Protecting Your Family. I'm an estate planning attorney, so most of my practice deals with helping families protect their assets when they're no longer around. Because many people don't know, when you pass away, things don't get inherited automatically. There's something called the probate court. And if you don't have a trust or a will written down, the court basically decides how your assets get distributed. And that can be a really scary thing, and it's time-consuming and very expensive.
It's already scary for me just knowing that there's a probate court.
Yeah, and they can take up to 20% of whatever you own in your estate. So if you don't have a document written down distributing your assets, the court will come in, they'll do the trust administration for you, and they will take a percentage. And many people say, well, I don't have the money to do an estate plan. But the cost of dividing your assets through the probate court is more expensive than actually going and working with an attorney to get all the documents that you need.
So why don't they just automatically, just by default, have the family's assets passed on to their children without any?
Well, in California or different states, there's something called intestate laws. So that is the law that's in place if you don't have a trust or will. So most of the time, your spouse or your kids will inherit, but the thing is that sometimes you don't talk to your kids or you don't talk to your parents or your siblings, and you don't want them to inherit what you leave behind, and you don't want the court to come in and make up the law for you. When you have a trust or a will, you're writing down how things are getting distributed. Or even parents that are on good terms with their kids, maybe they don't want their kids to get an equal share, or one of their children is a drug addict or has problems with managing their money. When you have a trust, you kind of make the rules of your own family and how things are going to get distributed. And a lot of people have the concern about the estate taxes, that when you transfer assets, are your kids going to get taxed? So there's a federal exemption of $5.4 million. So you can gift $5.4 million, and so can I. But every state has a state estate tax as well. California doesn't have a state estate tax. So as long as your estate is under the $5.4 million threshold, your family's not going to be paying a tax.
Well, then in general, most people probably aren't going to have to be taxed on it.
Yes, they don't have to worry about it.
So, but okay, so let's say it's just $250,000 and you leave it to your kids. You don't get any tax on that?
No.
That's good.
You're not going to get taxed. But let's say you leave behind a home. You pass away, your kids inherit it. At the time of your death, the home is worth $250,000. But your kids sell it for $500,000. Well, they've made a profit on that. There's $250,000 profit. They will get taxed on that profit.
That would be capital gains?
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. And another important thing about estate planning is making sure if you have children that are under the age of 18, if they're minors, that you write down who their guardian is going to be if something happens to you and their other parent. And a lot of people think that a grandparent or an aunt and uncle can come in and just take care of that child, but that's not how it works. The court will decide who will be the guardian.
Wow.
Yeah, that could be really scary for a lot of families.
So what would happen if you didn't have your will in place and you passed away when you had children?
So the court comes in and basically they decide who is the best fit to take care of that child. If there's no family member, then they can go into foster care, and that can be very scary. Or they can be given custody to, they can give custody to someone that maybe is not the best fit, or they don't have the same religious or political beliefs that you may want your children to grow up with. So these are really important topics to discuss, but no one wants to talk about passing away and not being around.
Yeah, for sure.
So we try to make it as fun as we can and kind of lighten the mood, but unfortunately I don't get invited to dinners much because I only talk about prenups and dying, so no one no one ever wants to invite me over.
We're wearing black, right?
Yes.
So it's very appropriate for... Oh my God. Well, it is an important point, though. It really is. And, you know, there is kind of a problem with the fact that people can't pass on their wealth.
Right.
I should say, and that the state will, or even the country will want a big piece of that.
Yeah.
I've even heard of it being taxed up, up to 50%.
Yeah, it can be taxed. There's a statutory law in place where your first 100,000 they can take 4%, second 100,000 3%, and it keeps going up and up as your estate grows. So it's really important, when an attorney says I charge this much, $1,100, $1,500, pay that, because if you look at the grand scheme of things, when you don't pay that and you don't get that stuff taken care of, the state's going to take a lot of money. And the way I like to tell my clients, to show them how important it is, when you don't have an estate plan, it's like driving in your car without putting your seatbelt on. And then you get into a car accident, you fly out of the windshield, the ambulance is picking you up, and then you try to put your seatbelt on. It's too late when an accident happens, so you need to plan ahead.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
So how did you end up getting your radio show to discuss the subject?
Well, I've had a radio show for the last 4 years with my dad, but it's in a completely different language. It's in Farsi.
Wait, your dad's in the radio too?
Yes.
What, is he a lawyer also?
No, he's a financial planner. So
okay.
That's how I kind of got into estate planning. I always wanted to be a lawyer. So I've been doing that with him for 4 years, but in a different language. And then I decided to venture out and do other radio shows, and then I teamed up with KBC, and they decided to give me my own show, and it's called Protecting Your Family. And then I had Kerri join because of what she's gone through with her family, and I thought she would be a great co-host to have.
What about people in Kerri's situation, like where the step parent is estranged from the child and the person passes away?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those cases and situations where I think it's really important for anyone that's watching, if they have children from a previous marriage and then they get remarried, to make sure to protect those children. A lot of people say, your spouse comes first, but in my eyes, your children should always come first before a spouse or a significant other. And it's really important to make sure those kids are protected, because you don't know what's going to happen when you pass away. Your spouse will inherit everything, and if they don't get along with your children from the first marriage, they can disinherit them from everything and be left with nothing, to their name. And in Kerri's situation, what was really important is the healthcare directive. So making sure that there's something written down on what you want for your medical decisions. How many times do we see families fighting? One parent will say put them on life support, another parent says no, they don't want to be on life support. And
that's a really touchy subject.
It's like the Terry Schiavo case. The president even got involved in that situation. So I don't want any politician being involved in my medical decisions. I rather have those tough conversations with my family members now, like organ donation, do you want to be on life support, even burial instructions. And I don't want to leave my family with a headache and that burden of deciding. So it's really important to just sit down and just talk about these things.
Yeah, it definitely is, even though it may not be the most fun subject.
No, it's not. But, you got to think about it this way. You're protecting them, and that's what's important.
Yeah. Well, on that note, let's take a quick break. All right, welcome back to the Red Boost Show with Naz Barouti. So, we have been talking about a super exciting subject that you guys probably should know about, which is basically estate planning and what happens when you pass away unexpectedly. or even expectedly, but as well as family situations that might involve children, disputes, and things like that, which you really have to kind of look out for, especially as an artist. You know, you're going to have a legacy, right?
Right.
So you're going to have the rights to your films. You're going to have the rights to your music. You're going to have the rights to all of the projects that you've been involved with, and you're going to have, you know, your family. So depending on how your family structure is, if you've been remarried, if you have children, etc., this stuff is something to think about for sure, and at least to have in place. Also, Naz has a radio show, so she is a radio host, and she talks about this subject all the time. You know, I really appreciate you coming on to share some of this stuff with us.
Of course. And like you were talking about actors and actresses, and we're seeing it time and time again where brilliant actors are dying really young, like Philip Seymour Hoffman, but they have taken that extra step. Like Philip Seymour Hoffman had a will in place, and it was really important in his will for his children to be exposed to the culture of Los Angeles, New York, or San Francisco and the art scene. And he actually wrote that in there, which I think is genius to think about these things. And, you know, it's kind of not being selfish and making sure that your children are protected. Or Paul Walker, he made sure to have a will in place so everything would be passed on to his daughter, and he actually named his own mother to be the guardian of his daughter because his significant other that he had a child with at the time had an alcohol problem. So these actors are great examples of what people need to do, and it's unfortunate that we have to use these situations to kind of push.
Isn't that kind of ironic though, because he had a drug problem?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
oh, Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah,
yes.
Like,
it's ironic and it's sad, but at least, you know,
it's a very sad problem. Obviously, the whole situation.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It's hard to say that. Like, what about the mother?
Well, I don't think Philip Seymour Hoffman was married, but he basically made her the executor of everything, so she's going to be in control until the children reach a certain age. And Courtney Love, for example, like Kurt Cobain had a will, and all the rights to Nirvana's songs, Courtney Love is kind of controlling right now. I mean, I know a car company offered to pay her millions of dollars to use a Nirvana song for just 30 seconds, and she didn't allow it. And their daughter, that she's kind of estranged from right now, is not going to have any voting rights to the songs of Nirvana until she's 45, I believe. So it's really crazy how you can kind of control people when you're not around.
Did he have a will? Do you know?
Whatever he set up, I don't know the specifics of it, but the rights to Nirvana, which probably was written down in a will, he named Courtney Love to kind of control his empire when he wasn't going to be around.
What about the rest of the band?
The rest of the band, I don't know the details about that. Yeah.
I guess I'll have to talk to them about that.
Yeah.
You guys need to come on my show so we can discuss the details. Anyways, yeah, but I mean, obviously this kind of stuff is like, it's a huge deal, and you don't expect it to happen, especially obviously with people who have accidental or suicidal or whatever it is that happens, you know, the sad stories out there. It is really important. It's kind of like, I guess, having insurance in a way.
Exactly. I mean, you insure everything down to your vacuum and your iPhone. So why not insure your life and just take, you know, that step to protect your family?
What about life insurance, actually? That makes me think of that.
I actually do life insurance as well, too. It's part of the service that I provide. And
exciting, right, guys?
I know, all this talk about death and not being around. But, you know, you leave behind responsibility, especially if you have children. And there are cool formulas that you can use to figure out how much you would need. I like to use the DIME formula, D-I-M-E. So D is for how much debt you have, I is your income, M is for how much is left on your mortgage, and E is the education of your children. So if you want your children to go to college, expect $25,000 a year for each child times 4. And that's only if they go to public school. If you're trying to send your kids to USC, you better add much more on that. And when you add up all of the numbers on that DIME formula, that's how much life insurance you would need to allow your family to live comfortably and continue their life when you're not around.
What happens when you get life insurance and you pass away? Do they tax that money too?
No, it's not taxed.
Oh, that's good at least.
Yeah, that's a good relief.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of surprising to me that it would get taxed at all in the first place, honestly.
I know.
I mean, it just doesn't make really any sense logically to me. Like you have stuff, this is your family's stuff.
Yeah, believe me, I know how it feels, and it kind of sucks that everything that you've worked hard for is going to get taxed, but that's just how our country is, and that's how the system is in place. But there are
Maybe
ways.
we should do something about that. I mean, you get taxed when you make money.
Yes.
You get taxed when you spend money. You get taxed.
You get taxed when you breathe.
You get taxed
when you talk.
I mean, you get taxed at every angle
Right.
of the money that you do make. So when you do finally have that money
I mean,
to pass on to your family, I don't really think it should be taxed.
Yeah, there are ways. There are different tools in estate planning that can reduce your taxes if you're in a certain bracket, and it's really complex and detailed. But I go over all of that with my clients when they come in, and we get a lot of
listen to the radio show.
Yes, the show Protecting Your Family on KABC every Saturday from 6 to 7 p.m.
Awesome. Where does KABC air or broadcast to?
I think we record in Culver City.
Okay.
It's Cumulus Station, and
That's where Jack FM is, right?
Yes, it is. And you can listen to it on podcast if you're in another state and KABC doesn't.
Right.
You don't get KABC, but if you go on their website, kabc.com, under weekend programming, click on Protecting Your Family. All our podcasts are on there with me and Kerri. And
is it video also, or just?
There are some videos that we've had, like I've had Mickey Rooney's daughters on my show because they kind of went through a similar situation that Kerri went through.
Wow.
To those seniors, and especially elderly veterans, Army, Navy, Marine, like you veterans like myself, I want to tell you this. You're not alone. And you have nothing, ladies and gentlemen, to be ashamed of. You deserve, yes, you deserve better. You all have the right to control your own life. Everyone does. You have the right to control your life and be happy. Please, for yourself, end the cycle of abuse and do not allow yourself to be silenced anymore.
And that was the voice of Mickey Rooney testifying in front of Congress about the elder abuse that he faced. And I'm so honored to be joined by his daughters, Kimmy and Kelly Rooney. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. I know that was a very emotional moment for you. But how are you feeling listening to your dad's voice?
Proud. Deeply proud. It took a lot of courage at 90 years old to come before the United States and say what has been happening to him.
Now, why did nobody listen? He got up there and said, this is what's happening. Mm-hmm. Why couldn't he be helped? Why didn't you? I mean, like, these are rhetorical questions because I know what goes on with elder abuse and I know how it's handled. But he got up in front of Congress. Could you guys not use that?
Yes, we can now. I wished I would have known you, Kerri, earlier. Your inspiration has been monumental. And I wish we would have picketed. I wish we did all that. He told me everything that was going on. That his wife and her son were abusing him. He wouldn't let us take him out of the house. At the age that he was, he became almost like an abused woman and felt completely degraded as a man. And he did listen to me, though. I wanted to take him out of the house the day he told me, and my sister and I. He refused to go with us. He didn't want it to happen the way we wanted it to. And I told him he needed to pick up the phone and call 911, and he did. And I'm very proud of him for that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he's saying you have nothing to be ashamed of. Because like you said, women that are abused, they feel ashamed because they think it's something that they did something wrong and they deserve it. And I know there's a lot of skeptics out there that are asking you guys, and they're asking you, Kerri, well, why didn't your dad leave?
Right.
Why didn't he divorce her?
Kelly gave the perfect answer. It's like a battered woman. You ask them, why didn't they leave? To people who aren't in that situation, it's so simple. Just leave. But it's not that simple. And you're right. It is like almost a failure if you do, or you can't fix it, or you're less of a man, or, you know, my dad, though, he gave his word, and his word meant everything, even to his detriment. He gave his word, for better or for worse. And unfortunately, that ended up killing him.
So there's some video on the YouTube page. The YouTube page is linked to the KABC website.
We'll have to get everyone to go and check it out. And is it actually on any of the LA radio stations too as well?
No, it's not. Not yet, but we're hoping to branch out pretty soon.
Well, if it's on the internet, anybody can hear it.
Yes.
So there you go. That's great. That's so cool. And how long have you been doing the show for?
I've been doing the show for a year, so we're almost at our year mark, and I'm really excited because we've gotten a lot of buzz and a lot of interest in estate planning and got the word out there, especially with Kerri's story. So I'm really excited to make sure that more families get the knowledge that they need to protect themselves.
All right, high drama expected in a California courtroom just minutes from now. For example, billionaire Donald Sterling, he is scheduled to take the stand. The word from Twitter is that he's wearing sunglasses and he's in the courtroom. Now, his estranged wife has a plan to sell the Los Angeles Clippers. He was supposed to testify yesterday, but he never showed up. Joining me now from Los Angeles with a little more insight into this case is Naz Barouti. She is a California attorney who specializes in business planning, asset protection, pre- and post-nuptial agreements, all that great stuff. All right, thanks for being here on Taking Stock, Naz. We were just talking before you came on that this has turned into a theatrical entertainment event as much as it is a legal proceeding. Tell us what's going on in the legal world in California.
Right. So ultimately, the fate of the Clippers lies in the hands of the probate court to determine whether Donald Sterling actually, in fact, does have capacity or not. As you know, Shelly Sterling is claiming that he did not have capacity. Therefore, she removed him as a trustee in the Sterling Family Trust and went behind his back ultimately and sold the Clippers for $2 billion to the CEO of Microsoft.
So how does Shelly Sterling get around whatever the rules or regulations are of the trust?
Well, the trust is a revocable trust, and in the document, it's reported that if a trustee or the creator of the trust believes that another trustee is incapacitated, she can have two independent doctors examine him and determine whether he has capacity to function as a trustee. And she did this, but the doctor that examined Donald Sterling yesterday was testifying and said that after the examination, she went to the Polo Lounge in Beverly Hills and had dinner with Shelly Sterling. So that raises a lot of eyebrows as to this independent doctor that's examining Donald Sterling and is claiming that he has Alzheimer's.
So the doctor who has, one of the two doctors that actually interviewed Donald Sterling and determined that he has Alzheimer's, when then had dinner with Shelly Sterling.
Yes, she testified that after the 2-hour examination, they walked across the street to the Polo Lounge in the Beverly Hills Hotel and had dinner. She did also mention that Donald Sterling joined them later on, but that Shelly Sterling discouraged him from joining them at their table.
So what do you make of this? How do you think this is going to end up?
Ultimately, to be quite honest with you, I think that the doctors that were selected on Shelly's side and Donald's side, I don't think that they're independent, and there is a financial stake for both parties. So I think the best choice for the probate court would be to select their own independent doctor to examine Donald and to see if he really does have capacity and if Shelly really has the right to sell the Clippers to the CEO of Microsoft.
I want to thank you very much. Thanks for giving us the details and more understanding. Attorney Naz Barouti joining us from Los Angeles. Coming up on Taking...
That's great. And your dad has a show.
Yes, that's in Farsi though. It's in a different language. It's
okay.
on 6:70 a.m., which is all Farsi shows. So
really?
I'm on that Mondays, very briefly for like 10 minutes from 2 to 3 p.m.
Okay, so you obviously are fluent in Farsi.
Yes.
That's great. I wouldn't have noticed because you have no accent.
I know, and my Farsi is pretty good too. But when I was growing up, I was born in Iran, and when I moved here when I was very young, I was 3 or 4. We only spoke Farsi in the house.
You were born in Iran?
Yes.
What is it like over there?
I don't remember. I was very young.
Okay.
I left right around the Iran-Iraq war, so I don't really have a memory of it, and I haven't been back. So.
Do you talk to other family that's from there, or?
Yeah, I have some family that's there, but most of my immediate family is in the States.
It just, I'm sorry, it just piqued my interest because of the whole way that it's such a different culture in regards to women over there.
Yeah, it is different, but it's more, if you really learn about the cultures, it's very different from state to state, the Middle Eastern region. Like Iran, we have there's more women in colleges than there are men right now.
Whoa.
It is still, oppressive to many people, to the Western world, but it's more progressive than people think. And I think the media has given it a very negative view of what the country is all about because of the political leaders that are in place. And if they really research about it, the people are not in agreement with the politics of the country.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so just interesting. We have a chance to set some of the records straight. Do you have any good facts about how it works there with regards to that, or women's rights and things?
No, I don't. Unfortunately, since I
you haven't
grow
been
up
there,
there.
yeah.
I didn't grow up there. Even though I'm a Middle Eastern minor in undergrad, I don't know the details, and I wouldn't feel comfortable speaking on that. And I'm sure someone would correct me and send me an email.
Okay. No problem. Yeah. That's just interesting to me. I love to hear stories about stuff like that. Not just from Los Angeles,
right,
but all over the world.
Right.
So, well, you're awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've gone out and gotten. You've been a lawyer as well, and that takes a lot of work to get that in the first place. So,
I've had to do a lot of sacrificing. I mean, I went to law school in the Midwest, so in Minnesota, that cold. There was nothing else to do but study. So
it's been pretty cold in LA, but I think Minnesota.
Oh yeah.
Is a lot worse than that.
A lot worse.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, I totally hope everybody tunes into your radio show.
Thank you.
Yeah, and gets lots of, helpful advice from you, and also, financial planning information and stuff like that. I mean, even just artists, obviously the living, everybody needs to pay more attention, I think, to their financial planning, and there's so much more that you can learn about it. I know for me, I want to learn a lot more about that as well, so that you can manage your money properly.
Right.
So
maybe the next show.
Yeah, maybe the next one. Anyways, it's really cool to have you on, and
thank you.
It's very
important
for having
stuff.
Me. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for watching Naz Barouti on
The Red Booth.